Hello and welcome everyone to the 8th edition of the TechUncovered panel discussion. This time we'll be talking about how data and people can work together. But as always, you didn't come to see me, so I would like to welcome our panelists and Vojta, my colleague, who will be guiding you through the evening. So Vojta, floor is yours.
Thank you, Jan. Welcome everyone, and this is TechUncovered Data. We are in this great place in Pipedrive Prague offices, and I want to thank them for having us here. And today we'll be talking about data and how we can connect data with people, because I believe that data without the context of people on its own, they don't have much value. So first, let me introduce our guests, our speakers here, and I will actually ask them to introduce themselves. And please tell our guests, our listeners, who you are, what's your role. And one question already for the beginning: what do you do to connect people with data? And how do you make sure that they get the right value from it? So let's start with Petr.
Okay, so my name is Petr Nemet. I am the CEO of Datadriven. And of course, we are a company that provides the infrastructure for delivering of the data. And being a founder and having the 10 plus years experience in the data industry, my role is mainly to, let's say, pass over the vision, the product vision, to all of my colleagues and make sure that they are doing the good decision according to that.
All right, thank you. Amy?
Okay, so my name is Ime Navo. I'm from Pipedrive. I joined Pipedrive as the first product analyst in Prague. And my role, how I would define it, is that I'm something like a bridge or translator between a data engineer and a business stakeholder, which is usually a product manager or sales or marketing manager. And I'm helping them to actually decide through the product usage data, what's the best for the product.
Thank you. And finally, Merrick.
Hello everyone, my name is Merrick and I'm from Avast. I've been with Avast for quite a long time, 12 years, and I was fortunate to wear different hats, but all of them were somehow related to data. Now I'm in the role of Chief Data Officer, and well, what I do, or what I have been doing, to connect people with data. So one of the things which I learned that over time that we need to keep all the data people, those engineers, those who want to use data, connected. So keeping them connected through internal events, through regular communication, and listening to them. So that's why we have been organizing, and it became our flagship event in the company. It's called Data Summit. So we had, many editions already, many years. And this is what has always helped us to have people who won some of the micro battles they had with data, to share their story with others, and then this is what helped us to create a network of data people within the company. And now, well, it's still the major challenge to keep the network connected, but this is what you probably also know, that it's challenging to keep people in touch.
All right, thank you, Merrick. And of course, I won't be the only one asking the questions. There is also a Slido for you. So if you go to slide.do/techuncovered without any spaces, you'll be able to ask the questions. And I have a phone here, so I'll be checking your questions throughout the event. And if there will be anything related to what we are talking about, I will ask my guest immediately. But most of the questions we'll leave for the end. So there will be Q&A session before we wrap everything up. So go to slide.do/techuncovered. And let's start about our topics, connecting data with people. And for me, it's mostly also about how do we structure our organization, our company, to have the right roles there to enable everyone in the company to get to the data that they need. And of course, we have a different level of experience or different size of the companies here. So I would like to know about how your data teams, if you have any, how the structure looks like in your companies. So let's start now from Merrick.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and there is unfortunately one-size-fits-all approach. And I like the framework which is called STARS framework, and it's not the STARS data schema. It stands for different things, different topics. STARS is S is for startup, TS for turnaround, R is for realignment, the last S is for sustain, and it describes the different situations which the company as a whole, or a team, or a function in the company, a situation where they are in their existence. So startup, that's clear, they are starting up, and turnaround, there is something already behind them, and they need to change the way how they operate. And for these different situations, there are different challenges and different opportunities, and you need to apply different management styles and group people differently. That's what I have learned over time. So in those moments where you are trying to realign your whole organization to, because it got already too large and you need to deliver some efficiencies, or you need to integrate more companies to make it one, then suddenly you need this role of one strong central team where you have really senior people who can put on the hat of the architect and help others who are not part of the large team, but who are decentralized. It's this hub and spoke. So help to support the spokes, the product analytical teams, so that they can operate on their own and slowly get them to some more efficient organizational model. Whereas if you are in the situation where you need to accelerate the growth, this is where you suddenly need someone who is able, from the massive flexibility, to be more structured, to introduce structure, because you want to grow, you want to keep acquiring companies, launching new products. So the one size fits all doesn't work. Right now, how we have it organized at Avast, we have, as we have grown through acquisitions, and everyone knows that, and there are other major events in front of us. But there is what I have always cared about, to have not multiple data warehouses. So there is still one data warehouse. There's these data products. There should be at least the clarity in what is the one authoritative source of data. So this is where we care a lot, to have one strong technical team. And then, of course, there are the challenges that there are product teams, sales teams who have analysts. Suddenly they don't have analysts. They need more time to learn. And our challenge, as we have grown, because when the company is smaller, you can go to Imi, you can go to Vojta, you know the names. And as you grow, you cannot know everyone personally. And so this is for me the major challenge, how to make sure that the onboarding of new people, that they get right time to the right knowledge.
I think like onboarding will be something we'll get to. And let's go back to the data analyst. And Imi here is a product analyst. So I would want to learn a little bit more, because I have read the blog post that you have on a product Pipedrive engineering blog about the transition that you had to go through this year, or like in past year, because of your growth and the challenges that you had there. So please tell us a little bit more about like what you went through as you had to grow, and the number of product managers pretty much like were higher than the number of data analysts that you had in team.
Okay, so maybe I'll start with how our product analytics teams are organized. So we are about 11 analysts, like globally. Here in Prague, I'm the only one. But how we work in Pipedrive is we are on the concept of tribes. So tribe is I would say, a team that focus on one product area. So how we work, how our service model as analysts in Pipedrive is, we are a so-called embedded service model, which means that we are officially under data tribe, but we are dedicated to one product area. So for example, me, here in Prague, we have this lead tribe, where I'm dedicated analyst for the lead tribe. And you're right, Merrick, that I know Pipedrive now has 900 employees, so I don't know anyone by names, but I know my team, I know my tribe, and as an analyst, I know also like what is their business challenging. So as a product data analyst, I know the data, but also very important is that I know their business, like daily operation, what their features, what their product, where is it heading. So it's not just about like knowing the numbers, knowing the data, creating dashboards, but also like be a partner in this like product development team. So be there like together. So and related to that, your question is that yes. So since we have, I don't know, like about 50 PMs, so it's not even possible to have like one analyst dedicated to one product manager, right? So how we somehow tackled this problem is that we shift this, I think last November, we shift this feature and also the data, like product manager is now the owner of the product data. So we are running some trainings for them, how to boost their data literacy, how they can use the analytics tools by themselves. So in PyDrive, we are using Amplitude, which is a product usage tool, where they can simply answer without any advanced analytics knowledge or data background, like some simple questions. How my feature is used, what is the retention, where my people go from point A to point B, if, I don't know, like something like that. How frequent our users are using each feature. So this is our current model. And of course, in reality, it's not like PM is completely independent and answering the data questions by themselves. So we as analysts are there as a consultant, as a partner for them.
All right, thank you. And finally, to Peter, and I know that you told me that you don't have any data analyst in your company. How come?
Actually, we are trying to promote data-driven culture across the whole company, simply because we are the provider of the one important part of data infrastructure. But of course, we are learning a lot from our clients, our customers. How do they actually structure their data team? We see mainly according to what is their primary objective, whether it's the governance, whether it's assurance of the quality on the one side. Then we see that they are more inclining towards being very centralized, having, let's say, very single governing body. But if they want to shift towards more employing some sort of domain knowledge or being more agile in terms of delivering the results and insights, they of course tend to incline into more kind of decentralized waves of the organization. But probably as Merrick already mentioned, some sort of hybrid model is probably the way forward, where you have some part, especially when it comes to larger organizations, where workloads like data engineering, data architecture, governance, security is centralized, and domain knowledge or some sort of citizens data analytics is being kind of transferred towards more line of business, whether it's marketing, HR, finance, or legal.
Thank you. Imi, as a data analyst or product data analyst, how are you supported from other data teams, let's say like data engineering teams? I imagine that you work within the cross-functional environment of a product team, but you surely need some support from other teams as well, data-oriented teams in PipeDrive. How's it working there for you?
Of course, there's a close cooperation with the data team, because they are like the ones who are building this data, right? So how it works, we are following some of their guidelines, so data guidelines. We are defining some, let's say some aggregation or some requirements from the business to them. So actually, as an analyst in PyDrive, I'm not the one who is creating those data pipelines or doing this technical stuffs like acquisition data and preparation part of the data. And that's one part. And the second part is that we are also using, for product usage, we are using Segment tool, which is basically a tool that connects like the several like various data sources to the destinations. One of the destinations is Amplitude analytics tool that I mentioned. So, and this tool doesn't require any engineering in it. So they are like, our data engineering team is like, I don't know, like maintaining this Segment tool for us. So that's how our cooperation works.
All right, thank you. And Merrick, what was the recent change or something that you've transformed the company around like data, or how you operate with data like over the past year? Were there like any changes even at the size of the company like yours?
Well, the major change was, and it's related to, I've been in this role for 1 year and something, and the priority was to implement the defensive side of the data strategy. So we have been always able to use data to win, but we had to, with the size, with the volume of data, number of systems, all the acquisitions, we had to introduce something, data governance.
Right.
But scalable data governance, not a bureaucracy, because, and it's, yes, today it's normal. Every company should know what data is, where, for what it is used, who has access to it, how long it stays with the company. So that was for me the primary focus. We have it now, and now getting more back to the offensive use of data. Mm-hmm. So what should be the use cases, how we could use the data. So this is the major change, that we have what I can call some proper balancing between the offense and defense. Like, can we use the data this way? And of course, as Imi mentioned, the data literacy, and I like the concept that the product managers, and no matter whether it is product for customers or internal product, there should be a product manager who understands the data aspect of the product. And this is what I have in front of me to make this happen, because this is the only scalable way to move forward.
And for some of our viewers, if they are interested in like learning what it takes to actually start getting into data governance and really like make it part of a company, what would you say are the like necessary first or key steps for everyone to consider?
To start with the data governance, I actually wanted to start already when I was doing even BI years ago. Then you start doing it with your hands. Then you realize, okay, there are concepts like master data management, and it's good to have data catalog, but it's very hard to sell it to the top management. So this is what I needed to learn, how to sell it, to whom to sell it. What helped definitely was the regulatory requirements, which every company has to deal with, not just GDPR, but as we are already a publicly listed company, there are also some requirements where you need to be able to prove how you create the information, what is the audit trail. So suddenly you need the tools and technologies which allow you to do data lineage. You should have a business dictionary. So articulating these drivers and then translating that into a project, and then getting the funding. That was another challenge, but yes, it happened. And what was the most important, to answer it, is to have people who can get excited about this topic, because it can be boring for engineers. So what I did first, I was secured a team who is excited about the topic, about doing the technical side of the governance, thinking about policies, and by policies, I don't mean paper policies, I mean technical policies, how to enforce it, who are excited about access management and so on.
I was recently heard about this new positions called data steward. We have it in PyDrive as a tool, as a data catalog, as you mentioned. But I was surprised that in some company they actually have a person who is like data steward.
These traditional companies like insurance companies or in banking, those that have been regulated for many years before all our businesses were regulated. So it's quite a standard position or role, data stewardship. And yes, we are also trying to do it this way. although not calling the role as data steward. It's
funny.
This looks like necessary steps to actually get properly into some self-service for data. And like we'll probably get into more like how to make it work for like more traditional environments for like data, pretty much like anyone in the company. But first, let's talk with Petr about you are pretty much like providing data as a service, as a tool, right? So for anyone to actually not just access to data, but provide the data for everyone else.
That's correct.
How it actually like works? Like I can imagine that you would need like some data engineering team to actually manage the central repository of data. But with your tool, pretty much anyone can come and provide or publish their data sets.
Yeah, so we are really trying to work with, let's say, industry best practice, which is, of course, having a single source of data warehouse where you can project all the data from all the systems that you have. So our goal is primarily focusing on the business user. It is not just about, let's say, having a nice interface so anyone can control it, but making sure that when we are connecting some of the platforms that we are working with, the users, without the knowledge of their APIs, without the knowledge of the data model, can actually easily identify what metrics they need to have in order to calculate their KPIs, whether it is return on investment on the marketing or whether it's their turnover in the e-commerce. And of course, we see that when it comes to let's say self-service analytics, the important approach is some sort of, let's say, MVP from the product world or some sort of proof of concept. So we are allowing our users to actually, without the need of having data warehouse, they can, as an initial proof of concept, they can project the data from some systems or multiple systems to a very simple dashboarding tool to kind of buy in their management, to kind of show what could be the value inside the company. And then once they kind of let's say figure it out, whether this data model was work, whether this report could work, they can transfer it towards the like proper setup with the dashboard and with all the like centralized reporting that they already have in the company. So that is the concept we want to introduce. Of course, with the self-service analytics, the big question and big concern is always the governance and the data quality. So. Actually, the way how we do it internally, we have some sort of catalog of dashboards that is some sort of curated, and we kind of make sure that once people look at it, they don't get it wrong, and they don't get it wrong insights from that. But we have some customers where creating such dashboard is so lively that it's becoming kind of hard to govern it and to manage it. So we actually had a very nice example how to deal with it. That they have introduced some sort of badging or labeling. So they have some sort of person or some sort of quality assurance department that go through all the dashboards that have been created, check them and put the badge. And if the badge is okay, people inside a company knows that they can kind of trust the data and trust the insights.
Mm-hmm. That's very good.
What is the background of those quality assurance people?
Usually, it's a people with the domain expertise, because usually when it comes to the self-service analytics, this is usually very closely tied to the line of the business. So whether it's finance, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, the person needs to have a knowledge about the particular domain. Of course, there is some sort of operations that are related towards checking the data itself, but this can be solved pretty much okay on the infrastructure level. But when it comes to insights and when it comes to the composition of the graphs, it's important that the people with the domain knowledge are involved.
And how do you or they deal with the ever-increasing number of reports? Because in self-service, that's the traditional challenge. I publish the following one, and
I think that's when we have been talking about this approach about the centralization and the decentralization. This is the job of let's say the central organization to actually kind of issue some sort of guidelines across the company, because yes, if it's uncontrolled, it could get all horribly wrong. So yeah, that's true.
And is there any type of automation possible within the platform with this, like that you would kill the reports which were not touched? I don't know.
This is definitely a good product idea, and we will definitely consider it.
Like generally, like the idea of like QA in data, like how do you manage it in Pipedrive? Is there like any like QA person that checks the report's outcomes, or is it really on you just to validate that the data that comes out are correct?
Yes, so that's actually our challenge currently. This we are kind of missing this review process. So in case of our product usage data, in Amplitude, you have like this tool that is like monitoring or checking some anomaly detection. So they have some integrated tool for it. So we are using currently this, but yeah, we are currently challenging, the challenge for us is this missing review process of how to, because as I mentioned, like since the owner of the data now is product, PMs, the business stakeholders, so they are creating a lot of like content, a lot of dashboards, a lot of new events. And we as analysts are somehow like not yet ready to check all of the data that was created. So yes, I don't know. We are dealing with this challenge right now.
Merrick, do you have some recipe?
Yes, please.
Not just the global recipe, but yeah, for product analytics, and you may remember it, that there was this unified library which collects data from all the products we have been offering. So once we unified the data collections, then you know what to expect, and then you can introduce some certain type of automation on the data collection side, on the aggregated level. So now we are having something like, I would call it alerting, that there is something weird happening. Why I say automation, because if you keep it manually, this is what people don't like to do, reviewing stuff after others. So then we are getting to the metadata. So what is the metadata about the report? What you as a report creator could, for example, flag, okay, this is what should be checked as a quality attribute, and then try to automate it.
Okay, the one way is that if the data or the process are collected in the right way, but the second check should be like from, as you mentioned, from the business stakeholder, if those numbers like make sense, if the amount of user that we have is 300 or 500, so that's the trade-off, like, okay, we are correctly setting up the way of how we collect data and aggregation, everything like that, but we are missing that business.
But those are not in the clash. You can have a perfectly well-working, data quality assurance on the infrastructure level, whether it's anomalistic detection, whether it's just making sure that there is some sort of deduplication and stuff like that, which can go perfectly along with having some sort of internal team that look at the dashboards, gives there the badges, watermarks, whatever it could be, and
Okay.
This sounds like the single source of truth topic that we can get into, and I actually split in between data sources and information or insights. So let's first start with a little bit to get the idea of how complex are the landscapes in your companies in terms of data sources and data, and whether you have single source of truth to access everything, and then they'll also look at where the data actually surfaces within different tools and for different teams and departments. So let's start with the most complex setup.
Yeah, but I tend to say that Avast is a collection of hundreds of systems. But then to simplify that, and this was the great force which helped us to get to the single source of truth. It was the IPO, because you need to have in that moment suddenly the one version of the truth. So how many customers do we have? What are the sales numbers? What are the numbers based on which you do the forecasts, which guide the market? So this is what created the pressure for everyone who had their own source of truth. And the typical difference is you have web analytics, the tracking you see on the web, you see all the sales, but you don't see the refunds, which are coming through different source. And like web analytics doesn't know about refunds. So that was the major challenge, and to get all the people used to, okay, this is the one, it goes to the official KPI, which is owned by finance. So for the sales metrics, for all the metrics which are used in the FP&A, financial planning and analysis, so there needs to be this really strong governance, and it's the authoritative source of data for analysis. But then there is always a flexibility needed. So then you have the different views, like the cohort views. You remember the cohort. So what the cohort analysis is, you don't use just time to look at the performance of the product, but you use different perspectives, and it's giving different numbers, and it can show nice story, but the total story is different. And then you need the translators. I like the term you used, because then you need someone to explain it, because it shouldn't happen in the boardroom or in the CEO room that there are two different versions of the truth. There needs to be some story between that, and this is the challenge, and that's why companies need to have translators. For product or application analytics, that's the mission, and I think it's never-ending mission, because different platforms, all the changes. But yeah, we try to have common set of metrics and events across the whole product portfolio to be able to compare it, compare the product lifecycle. But then there are product-specific metrics, and that's for the product manager. So that's enough.
So how's it looking in Pipedrive?
I definitely agree with this financial metrics area. So in Pipedrive, we have a team of business analysts, which are working on slightly different service mode as a product analyst. So as I mentioned, product analysts are embedded, so each analyst are dedicated to one area. But in case of business analysts, we are as a centralized team. So everybody is like doing everything, and like having this one definition of the metrics. What is churn? So this is very simple. What are the churn companies in your in the report? And you can be surprised how many definition of churn companies they are. So I think the mission of this business analyst, or newly in Pipedrive, we have a team called Analytics Engineering, who is taking care of this alignment, of this guideline of how those common KPIs for the company, like financial KPIs, are defined. And in case of product analytics, I would start with the fact that in Pipedrive we have an easier environment compared to Avast. We are one product. We are mainly a web app. So each of the user who come or is our customer has like this unified ID, unified definition of who is the customers. And this thing is really like, how to say it? It's the best about Pipedrive, that I actually have the definition of a unique user, and I can connect all those like data sources from everywhere, from marketing, from billing, from the product, into one, because I know who is the user. And yes, sorry, what was the question?
We were talking about single source of truth, and like how is it structured? Like I see the difference between like the data sources, so that might be actually like easier to achieve, and then the actual like information or insights that might really be different and kind of like redundantly spread across different tools that you might be using as well. I guess like in your case, it's simple.
It's Amplitude. It's simple. We have like one tool for product usage. So as you mentioned, each product area, each PMs are defining their own definition of metrics, such as like what is an active user. So active user of feature A can be completely something different than an active users of feature B, because one is like based on some front-end event, if they are clicking on some buttons, or if there is like back-end event behind it, like if they are using the feature in that way that it's supposed to do. So, and maybe the benefit also of, or how I see like a single source of truth. It's also the less layers of aggregation. So since the the product area has like one analyst who is like working on this specific area, this analyzes these metrics, and no other analysts are kind of like doing the same stuff. So there's like less layer of aggregation. So more people attending one thing can create some duplicates or like more version of truth. So I would say
and anything that pretty much like goes across product teams or combine different product areas together to get some analytical output, how do you handle that? Is it the business analyst that helps with that, or do you really like need to collaborate closely with each other to actually come up with some project that would combine analytical outputs from different product teams?
Yeah, that's actually one of the actual challenge as well, how we actually combine the product usage data with the financial world. And since they're like, in Pipedrive, there are like about 11 analysts, product analysts dedicated to the product area, and way less business analysts. I think now we're like 3 or 4. So how we are like, where is the line where the product analytics work begins and the financial? So we are trying to solve this currently. In my case is that I started to do also some business analytics data, but the advantage of this, as I mentioned, is that we have this unified ID of the user, so the combination of product usage and financial data are kind of like easy, but it's a matter of understanding the business, understanding the metrics, and understanding what's behind.
Right. And I guess in Datadriven this is like easier on the data source side, but also more complex since you have everyone using the data?
Yes. So let's say for us, we are a very young company, so we don't have to deal with legacy system. We were basically able to design everything from the green. So from this point of view, it's very easy. So we are, so to speak, drinking our own champagne in a way that we are, collecting the data from our production databases, from the payment systems, from the CRM systems, from the marketing systems towards a single data warehouse. And top of the data warehouse, we are using 3 different dashboarding technology. One for the finance, one for the marketing, and the third for the product. And but the important part is to kind of make sure that there is a consistency on the insights level, because of course you might have some metrics that represent 35%, but depending on let's say on everyone's background and everyone's kind of knowledge about a certain domain and about a certain issue, everyone could perceive it internally or differently. So even if we have some sort of conflicted reporting, it's always good to kind of maintain the communication and make sure that there is a consensus across the teams and across the company on the actual outcomes.
That's actually a great transfer into my next question, and that's about how do you upscale or keep up the knowledge within the company and make sure that well, it probably like starts with the interview process to get the right people there, and then you continue taking care of them. So how does it work with your company?
Yeah. So fortunately, we are a data infrastructure company. So fortunately, we are kind of attracting people that have a kind of natural inclination towards working with the data. Even if, even when we are, talking with the people from finance or from HR, you can see that they are somewhat more or less, technical, or at least are kind of, interested in that particular area. So this is very favorable for us. Of course, we are running a monthly kind of tech talks when we are trying to, let's say, evangelize all the people inside a company about the new topics in the data industry, about, let's say, the various, database technologies, about the various ways how actually people can work with the data. So everyone kind of has an idea of course, what we are doing at the first place, but how we can further evolve and how we can further, let's say, push forward our product at a second place. So we are trying to do it in a way of some sort of internal education. But of course, important part of our teams is a internal team that we call solutions, that is actually in the active contact with our clients, that is actually helping with implementation and with some sort of larger scale deployments, and they are some sort of glue between the business, between the technology, and between the marketing. And this so far works very well for us. That there is a very good flow of the knowledge across the teams, facilitated by this particular department.
Mm-hmm. And in Pipedrive, how do you onboard people so that they are like good at using your data? Is there like any specific process, something that you included into like their first month or something that would enable them to do their job great?
Yes, so I will tell from the part of product data analytics. So our stakeholder is PMs. So we have came up with this, we call it data literacy framework. So it's about training not only the onboarding part of the new PMs, so part of their onboarding process is actually data onboarding. As I mentioned, learning with the tools like Amplitude, learning how to track data, product data tracking 101 we call it, but also sharing some general product usage quick facts. So who is our customer, what is our customer base, what are our like basic metrics that you should follow. And so that's part of the onboarding, but we are also like doing this for existing PMs. There are some PMs actually who were interested in, for example, SQL. I know, surprising, but there are some. So we have tried one session actually with them, but we are also, I think, once a month. We are organizing this Amplitude 101 for not only PMs, but also designer, marketing, or anyone in the company who are interested in product usage. So they can sign up, and one of the analysts is actually running this training. So
I love that idea. I'll actually come back to the office tomorrow and suggest that we need to do it as well, like for the product people.
Okay.
And like within Avast, you already mentioned, Merrick, that you have the how do you call it? Not the talks, but the events.
Summit.
The data summits. How did you get there, and what actually like enabled your employees or Avast people to do with the data?
Well, we did it. We started many years ago, and the driver was that we already had some data in the data warehouse, and we saw the massive data gaps and data quality issues, which were, in our case, could be resolved only by engineers. But there was something like a wall between engineering and business. So the very first event was all about breaking this wall down and trying to come up with an idea how to get more systematic data from products. And that's many years ago. And then it became a regular event where we, on one hand, evangelized the new technologies we have introduced. So years ago it was Tableau, then Power BI. So how to get people to use more self-service. Then the new analytical methods. It was one time it was very popular. In our case, again, to do cohort analysis, to analyze churn through cohorts. So we asked those who were skilled in this to share how to do it, how to apply it, and then they attracted attention of other product teams. So this event has always been triggering the peer-to-peer training, and this is how we also do the onboarding, which is not always scalable, because when some key senior people leave, then you don't have the content. So right now I mentioned the topic stewardship, but it's also about the content. We need to have a content which the newcomers can see. With Google Analytics, it's quite straightforward. There is tons of content for those beginners online, and then they are onboarded by the core team. but also for other things. We need to be able to scale. We need to create e-learning, internal e-learning, because the peer-to-peer is no longer scalable with this size. So this is...
All right. I think we were talking a lot about people and the teams, and the second, opposite part of that is the technology. And I would just be interested in knowing, do you think it's actually solved issue, the technological part of working with data, or do you feel there is still space for something that should come or should be improved, or so that you avoid some custom development around how do you work with data and organize your teams?
I think the technology issue I see is that people either have unrealistic expectations that the technology will solve their problems by simply installing the technology. This is what. This is one challenge, definitely, and the other one is that it all starts. I think if you use the technology how it was designed, and I think that will be your story, because if you use it properly, how you build it. So every technology is built with some purpose, with some recommended approaches how to use it. If you use it this way, then it typically works. If there is let's say, good philosophy behind that and great engineering. If you start misusing that through, misusing that or doing some excessive customizations, then you are running into troubles because you are creating technology debt, or so misusing the technology is wrong, and also expecting that the technology will solve the problems that people created by creating tons of reports and mapping tables in places and copies of data. This is what no technology will solve. And I think, this is it. This is it. When it comes to data governance, there are already technologies which can help you to, let's say, speed up, to do the detection of what data is where you have personal data. So it can help people to focus into certain areas. But again, if you do it by design implements the data pipelines, you don't need then these technologies to detect personal data or sensitive data somewhere, because it's part of the platform. So the future is to do it by design in the platforms which are designed for that, and not misusing or building everything on your own.
All right. What would you say, Petr? Do you already see some future development where you are heading, something that's missing in the technological stack for data teams?
So, of course, I will be talking specifically about our industry, which is ETL, data injection, data extraction, if you will. And the way why we decided to, let's say, start with Datadriven and build a company and build a product was that we see that there are two main gaps. The first gap is that all the ETL or data extraction solutions were primarily focused on the technical user, whereas the consumption of the data, and this goes very well along with the self-service analytic that we just discussed, goes towards the business user. Of course, it will never be, let's say, a 100% business user that will kind of be probably, creating the whole data pipelines and the whole stack, but there are positions like, citizens data engineer, citizens, data analyst who are actually involved in that. So that was the first part, and the second part was that the traditional concept of the ETL is that the tools do extract the data in a, let's say, very raw format and put it into the data warehouse. And on the data warehouse, there is all sorts of operations, starting from data harmonization, cleansing, transformations, quality checks happening. And we strongly believe that there is a big room for, let's say, moving part of these workloads into the data extraction or data ingestion itself, whether it's harmonization of the currency formats, whether it's harmonization of the dates, whether it's data quality checks. If you are running a data pipelines, you have a consumers on your dashboard on the other side, and from some reason somebody using the Salesforce or PyDrive done a mistake, and instead of 1,000 invoice, he put there 100,000. Then as the value proliferates through all the different systems, and somebody who is actually consumer of the dashboard is absolutely not aware that there might be some sort of mistake, consumes that, and this can goes to the very wrong conclusions. So we believe that there are a lot of like technology initiatives like anomalistic detection that could be placed at the extraction side that could prevent most of these situations that unfortunately do happen.
We have a question in our Slido. So still, if you want to ask anything, you can ask our speakers here at slido.do/TechUncovered. And the question is about technology. And if you think that there are some requirements that a company should meet around their technological stack before they can become data-driven.
The company should meet some requirements before?
Technological requirements, or something that you would feel that is really about technology, or do you feel like it's completely opposite and actually more about the people?
I think you can be data-driven even with spreadsheets. Yeah. It will hurt, but...
Yeah, I think I'm convinced that it's a cultural thing. Yeah. It's a question of the company culture, and once you have the culture in place, once people wants to make a decision about based on the data, then the technology is just the necessary tool.
I totally agree. You can have build some, or from my experience, you can build some super predictive models, advanced analytics using several technology, and in the end you have the output. And if you meet the manager or the PMs who just say, okay, I just put 3. So then, okay, technology is okay, but it's about the culture, it's about the person, how they are data-driven.
All right, thanks. And I have a couple of more random questions now. I would want to know, Merrick, something that you would want to know a year ago or before you started as CDO that you know now to actually get you through your current role in a better shape?
Well, I think I was prepared based on the experience, was prepared in the data domain, like the data stuff, and also I knew how to negotiate and communicate. But yeah, what surprised me anyhow was the amount of talking, which is necessary with many colleagues from different functions, with legal, because there is a regulation which dictates how we should behave as a company, how every company should behave. Yeah, that's probably the major surprise, how much time I need to invest into creating the space for others who can then do the things. Mm-hmm. So there can be very simple idea, solution technically easily to be implemented, but in this scale, you cannot just ask people jump on it and do it. You need to have alignment and support there. So this is, but I'm trying to figure out a way how to do it my way as efficiently as possible, because I don't like bureaucracy. But yeah, that's the challenge.
We were talking about data-driven culture. It's more about the people. So would you say is the best way for someone to I don't know, change the mindset or get into data, or even get further and become a first probably data analyst and then continue through different roles to CDO? If any recommendations where to start for people?
I don't think you can repeat someone's journey. How I got to data, that I started in totally different industry, but I was so frustrated when I wanted to see report showing me something, and I was getting either answers like, okay, download it to Excel, or we have to ask the vendor, and then you receive the offer, which was that time it was former Eurotel, and the offer was, okay, new report, 1 million Czech crowns, something like that. That time I was like, what? So the frustration drove me to data, to engineer, and yeah, I was, as I said, I was fortunate to. I could do it the wrong way now when I see my colleagues how they are experts in engineering. But yes, I did something with my hands, and then I focused more on where I could excel, which was the leadership again, getting the right people together. So I don't want to say that this is the ideal journey. I think that it's very important to know always the business model, because we are here for the business, or for the customer, for the so this is important not to forget.
It's great, like also for everyone to know that you don't need to actually take the right path. You can pretty much like just become frustrated with data and then go ahead and become a data analyst. So that might be great to actually know that whenever we are hiring some data analyst, we can just try it, right? What about you, Imi? How did you transfer it into your product data analyst role?
Okay, so I think I was always enjoying mathematics courses. That was, I think, the main the beginning of it. So I study economics, and then I switched to econometrics, which is like statistical modeling, which is based on some data. So that was my first touch with the data. And I actually started my career in data science, so developing predictive models, and mainly for the big bank companies. And how I end up in product analytics is that there are firstly who is analyst, and what kind of analyst, what kind of type of analyst you can be. So it depends on what data you're working and what kind of people you're working. You can be a financial analyst who's working with the finance, but I found my happy place in the product organization, in the software company, where I'm like one in hand with the PM, with the product manager, and helping actually to build, like looking at the product usage data, how our customers. So that's where I found myself. So I was always into data since the university, but now I find my focus or my area where I enjoy.
Mm-hmm. I have actually one question here from Anonymous. How many product managers can one data analyst cover? How does their work get prioritized?
Okay, so currently the setup in PyDrive is, I would say, one analyst per 4 or 5 PMs. And how I prioritize my work. So who brings me chocolate? No, just kidding. But I don't know. Even in the tribe area, there is some prioritization. Yes, thank you. So it's like everybody, like each of the PMs, like they are working on some missions, they're working on some projects, and each of these projects are by themselves like prioritized. So I'm jumping in, I'm helping in a few steps, and trying to make everybody like happy. But of course there are some moments where I say, okay, I'm working already on 3 missions, and your missions is like starting in next week or month, so please wait, I finish this. And so this is how I currently organize my work.
So you are, I would say, like outside of how the individual product teams are organized in the deliveries, and you are pretty much like just delivering on your side, or your own backlog, managing your own backlog, or are you with the product teams like somehow tied with their sprints, or how they are organizing?
No, I'm having a separate sprint or backlog, but it's, of course, it has to be aligned with what is product currently doing, right? But it's not like part of their sprints.
There is older question from Pavel, and it's for everyone. If you had a magic wand, what will be the first thing you use it for in your job?
Magic what?
Magic wand. What would be the first thing that you would use it for in your job? Some bug fixed. Oh, magic wand disappeared.
I remember when I joined years ago AVG Technologies, I joined that with a mission that if the things like the systems are built in the right way, there wouldn't be any large data warehouse BI team needed, because if you do it right by design, as I said, that it could function. So this is how I always envisioned. If I do my job right, I will not be needed. So I would use the magic wand to get to the point where the data producers, the systems, are responsible or take the ownership of producing data which can be used down the stream by others. And it's documented by metadata and cataloged automatically. And yeah, and then I would eliminate probably myself, but
I agree with that. I have very same idea, but it would eliminate myself. So sometimes when I'm like dig into some analysis and trying to understand why this number drop, or why our customers are churning, or why they are not upgrading, so I would use that sometimes to see to get really the answer. So why is it like that? But I would lost my job because that's my job, right?
For us, standardization, which perfectly gets along with both answers previous. So we are dealing daily with various amounts of different APIs, different interfaces, and everyone is slightly different in a way. And this of course keep us in the industry and help us to let's say drive us forward. But of course, have there been some good standardization in place, it will make lives of every company way easier. That's for sure.
So true. Like if I imagine all the ways how you can implement pagination in APIs, that's nightmare. Do you see anything that's like what's the latest buzzword that you would feel is like coming out or will be there next year around the data?
So I think there will be a lot of talk about shift from big data to small and wide data, because we have been talking a lot about connecting all those different systems, which basically meaning that let's say the complexity shifted from the fact that you have a few systems that are very complex, have a very large data set, and you need to integrate them, towards more horizontal problem, where you have many different systems that are rather simple, but the complexity is actually in their amount. And there is another factor, which is, of course, the COVID pandemic, which effectively make all the longly cherished and longly collected data sets useless. You are from the travel industry, so what did this do to all the data sets from the airlines, that their predictive models are right now completely obsolete and useless. So I think this would be very important buzzword. The second might be something around the composability, mainly again due to the fact that there are a lot of systems involved. There has to be cost taken in mind, and of course, having composable data architecture, composable analytics, gives you some sort of controls of the cost, so you can iteratively scale as you need it.
You remind me about another question, and that's actually the costs, and how do you control it? How actually detailed it can get within your organization for the end users to understand how much they are spending when they are using analytics tool? can you actually somehow in an organization break it down to a team or departments, or how do you manage the costs related to data?
That's easy with if you use cloud native tools. So they were designed with the diligent, detailed cost management, but all the traditional approaches, to build data warehouse, it's yes, you can measure the usage, and we have stuff which is in the cloud, but also which is on-prem. And if it is on-prem and it's open source license, so you know what is the hardware cost, you know what is the software license, you know how many people maintain it, what is the electricity, but because it is, if you run it on your own, you don't have to worry about the cost of permanent processing, which is in the cloud. So you can be inefficient in this area. And in this region, that's there are lower cost of people when compared to US. So if you do things in cloud and compare it to your costs right now, it's definitely cheaper, but it's changing. So I think once companies are more in cloud, then you can have straightforward attribution of each workload, cost of the report. But it will be, for some companies, it can be more expensive than to do it the old way.
All right. What about in Pipedrive? Do you know how much your work?
To be honest, no. I'm as an analyst and not part of data engineering team. But only thing I could think of in terms of product usage data is that we are using the explicit way of tracking. So we need to define what we want to collect. It's not like we are collecting every step what our customers are doing in our product. So, and I know that with more events, with more data saved, I know that the cost is increasing. So I'm trying to understand or trying to explain the PMs. Sometimes they want to track everything, right? Every single click. So trying to convince them, do you actually need the information that the user clicks on this specific link, or trying to structure the question differently, what is the value of the action that he does, and not like let's collect everything and yeah.
Right. And the other side of the cost is actually the value that the work of data analysts or data teams or the projects deliver. How would you define what's actually the success of what do you do or the value? Ultimately, it's the business outcomes, right? Can you map it out? What would you say that your work? When would you say your work is successful?
Okay, so I'll start again from the perspective of analysts, also product analysts. So we are, in Pipedrive, we are working on the mission system. So mission is something like a project. And before this project is run or start to implementing and start to developing, as a PM, you need to define what is the OKR, what is the objective key result of this mission, to define what is the successful way that this feature was delivered, okay, or was it a failure. So here, as an analyst, I stepped in and I am trying with the PMs, try to define what are these OKRs and what kind of data you would need for it. And for each mission, it's different, right? So it could be I would like to decrease churn. So we will define some metrics that are related to churn. Or I would like to increase the engagement or discoverability of some features. So it always depends on what is the goal of this specific mission. And as an analyst, I'm trying them to translate, again, these business objectives to some data things.
What is it a success for you with Datadriven?
For us, basically, it's when the final consumer has its own dashboards in place, because we are able to, from some sort of telemetric data, able to track the consumption. Of course, we don't track the data itself, but we see that there is some sort of things happening in the background. So, and of course, if we see that there is a high level of consumption, meaning that that particular dashboard is being loaded, once every hour, we see, that this is success and people are using that. Of course, unfortunately, we are not able to track whether the results that the dashboard is producing actually do any good for the company, because we are not, after all, making the dashboards. It's on behalf of our users. But yeah, we do try to track it that way, basically purely from the infrastructure perspective.
All right. Merrick, what would you say is your success metric for yourself? What you do?
It's very hard to say what metric. I would say what use cases. So if you take the simple use case that you use the data and the infrastructure you have to produce reports, so you just the KPI. So that's the simplistic use case, and there is value in that. You need to know what happened. And on the other extreme, and this is what my colleagues have started doing a couple of years ago, and that's the experimentation. So you see that the data and the technology and the pipelines you have there are used to do A/B or ABCDF multivariate testing to make the decisions whether this campaign or this product feature or this copy should be used. So this is if the organization is to use experimentation, which is all relying on the data. That's what you studied. So if this scales and everyone uses that, this is, in my view, the success metric for data-driven organization. So, and yes, then we can have use cases like, okay, you could use machine learning to do whatever personalization of the offers, better targeting. But for me personally, seeing that the experimentation is being used, and there are more use cases and applications of that, this is, in my view, this data-driven success metric.
All right. I would take one more last question from the Slido, and Aleš is interested in knowing what your companies are working in terms of data stack. I believe that will take a while of us, but how would you define your data stack?
Yeah, so I think for data governance, we have chosen, and this is what we share publicly, we have chosen Atacama. It's actually a company which is here nearby. But that's for data governance for catalog, so that's the Atacama one. And we have expanded all the use cases within that. For data warehouse, we migrated off from one technology, and I will not mention the vendor, to Greenplum, MPP. So that's the data warehousing, and now, of course, we are using Google Analytics. This is where a lot of this is what is. If I look at the number of people who do analytics and use it, so that's the platform, because it's a lot of things happen on the web. And then yes, there is Power BI, the layer of data cubes, SSAS, which we have already for some time, and experimenting with other visualization tools like Superset. And we will see what the upcoming year will bring us. All
right, we're definitely interested in learning more about how you're starting using the Superset and how it all goes. All right, Imi, what about Pipedrive? You already mentioned Segment. What else is there?
To be completely honest, what is happening before that, I don't know. And so I can say as an analyst what kind of tools are we using. So we are using Segment, we are using Amplitude, but for some more deeper analysis or visualization, we use Tableau. And then some of our analysts depends on what they prefer. Some of them prefer R, some of them prefer Python. So it's and of course, yes, data SQL thing is a must.
All right.
So of course we are using Datadriven for all of our ETL and data pipelining jobs. This goes to Google BigQuery. as a data warehouse. We are very happy with this technology from perspective of the scalability and of course the cost. And on top of that, we are running a Power BI, Google Data Studio dashboards, depending on the team.
All right, thank you. So we'll be slowly wrapping this up. And just one last question. We already looked into your advice, like how to get into data. But do you have some recommendation what to read, or do you have something personal that you are catching up with every day or every week, like reading or reading list or blogs, favorite blogs around data, data quality or data management?
Well, for me, I am excited along with my colleagues now, the works that, and I can't pronounce her name, Zamak, and don't remember surname, data mesh principles. So this is something, if I read something about data, that's this one. And then maybe not that as reading, I still want to have hands-on, so I still keep installing on my small server at home some stuff and trying. This is what allows me to be close to those who really do it, to my colleagues who are experts in that. So playing with that, I think that's hands-on is very important.
All right. What about you? Do you have anything that you read recently or?
I recently read an article about what is like Analytics version 2.0, but to be honest, I don't remember what was the source. But my favorite podcast about data is Datacast by Kebula, so I kind of enjoy it, like listening different story from the company, and that's my favorite one.
Right.
So when it comes to my reading, it's usually the tickets that comes to our platform, because this is for me, it's a very good inspiration. How do people from the different backgrounds are actually approaching towards the data? And you see that there is a clear difference with someone who has a technical background, how he perceived the product, how he solved the problem, and then when it's somebody, for instance, with marketing or HR background, absolutely no technical knowledge, how he or she perceived that. So yeah, this is my evening reading.
All right. So do you think, is there anything that you would want to add for our session today, or do you think like we wrap it up well?
Maybe I would add that it's when I compare what is available right now to become data skilled, it's great. There are already study programs at universities here, or you see it abroad, they're really data focused. And we had it when I studied also. We had subjects like data modeling and all this stuff, but it wasn't focused. It was just computer science or econometrics. But right now you have data-centric study programs which address both aspects, like the technical one and the translation one. So I think there are so many opportunities available. And online there is this, how it is called, data camp, I think. There's where people can systematically measure their own data literacy. And although it's quite narrow, but I think it's way easier today than it used to be 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think also that especially with the different tools that pretty much like guide you through, and e-learning platforms, and you can learn SQL, Python online without the necessity to actually like install anything and like get through configuring stuff so that you can actually run. You can run it in your browser and learn SQL, Python. So I think like the starting point now for people to get into data analytics is so good for everyone. Okay, so that will be it. I want to thank you all for coming today and speaking and sharing your knowledge, and also to all our viewers that you made it, that you watched it online. We'll also keep the video recording so you can rewatch it later if you missed anything or it came late. And that will be it for today. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of the evening.